What's up, everybody? Welcome to the final mastermind of 2023. Both Todd and Deborah took the day off. I was actually planning to take the day off, and then I realized that, wait a minute, I get one last business call with Todd Ballenger in 2023. What's up, Mr. Ballenger?
Hey, man, what a way to close out the year. I'm excited.
Yeah, no, I'm excited too. I love you used to call them chart storms, and now it's the Borrow Smart Chronicles. I want to tie you down for the whole year. We're not gonna change the name. We're gonna call them the Borrow Smart Chronicles for all of 2024. Is that a promise?
I love it. Absolutely.
All right. So I've interviewed Todd a lot, so I'm not going to spend a lot on an introduction. But just because somebody might be new into the community, so maybe the first time you have listened to Todd or you've heard Todd, he is God, I call him the mortgage professor. I've known Todd for multiple decades, and he's always been like the trainer of the trainers when it comes to mortgage advice. He's helped several of the largest financial service companies in the country get in the mortgage business. Charles Schwab, one of them. Who's the other one? Ameriprise?
Ameriprise, yeah.
Yeah, Ameriprise. You're currently also a professor with the University of North Carolina. Didn't you guys win some cool award recently for something?
Oh, yeah. That was our program won the award for the most engaged platform in the country by college students, which is kind of cool. It's a platform to help teach them how to prepare for life and work and all that. So pretty fun stuff.
Well, I love that. I hope to have you more active in the First Home IQ community this year. Hopefully, we'll have one of the most engaged nonprofits helping address the financial literacy gap in America. So, if Kristen's listening, are you game with being more active this year?
Oh yeah, we've already got a call scheduled in early January.
Oh, good. So before we bring Todd on, and what him and I have agreed to do is he's putting quite a bit of time into these Borrow Smart Chronicles. There are a lot of charts, a lot of data as to what's most valuable for both mortgage and real estate professionals, and what's most valuable so that they can be great servants, advisors, and leaders to consumers. How can they help consumers make good data-driven decisions? So every month he's going to come in, he's doing this weekly, and just kind of net out, okay, here were the most valuable insights for mortgage professionals. Do that in a way that they can be great leaders to realtors. Before I go into that topic, I do want to make sure I make everybody aware who's watching this that we did announce the top 12 most viewed videos in the MortgageCoach YouTube channel this year. And so I want to share that on my screen. If you go to LinkedIn, make sure you follow me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active. I try to post every business day on there, but at least 2 or 3 times a week. But the top 12 videos, here they are in order. So the number 1 was Phil Jones. This was the first time that I interviewed Phil, and we had over 5,000 views. The author of Exactly What to Say. It was an incredible conversation. Dan Keller came in second place with The Power of Cold Calling Realtors. Number 3, The Simple Formula That Makes Loan Officer Millionaires with Steve Kiles. Next up, we had another Dan Keller. Dan Keller actually showed up 4 times. Notice the word realtor. The word realtor came up multiple times as the most viewed interviews of the year. Jeremy Forcier, Realtor Playbook. Brian McCauley, new Realtor Partners. Of course, Scriptapalooza. Scriptapalooza has been the number 1 interview or piece of content in our channel for years. It would have been number 1 this year, but we uploaded it and there was a mistake, and it got like 3,000 views. And like a week later, we filled out that, there was some missing content. We put it up again. So really, this was the most viewed video. I'm just being transparent and showing the numbers. Todd Duncan, Realtors. This was interesting, Todd. Jim Deitch, this is the first time where the interviews that I do for the C-suite made it into the top videos of the channel. I don't know if it was just a killer name, I think it was a killer conversation because I heard from a lot of people. This got shared a lot. I actually got invited to do a Moneyball mortgage panel at the Housing Wire annual event because of this video. Make sure you guys check that out. Jairus Forcier, top 6 loan strategies. Shayla Gifford, landing new relationships. And then closing it out, another first time I've interviewed Daniel Saw. Incredible story. He actually ended up closing over 370 loans in Columbus, Ohio. Last year, 2021, the #1 market leader in Columbus, Ohio was Huntington Bank. Coming in second was Rocket. Huntington's always the #1 market leader in Columbus, Ohio, but not in 2023. In 2023, Daniel Saw's branch of 32 loan officers who all average over 6 loans a month became the #1 market leader in Columbus, Ohio. Completely killing it. Absolute must-watch interview. So make sure you guys check that out. Make sure you share that. Todd, anything you want to comment on this before we move into the breakdown of the topic at hand?
I love the fact that a lot of it was developing new business. And the one thing I would love to see as a top 10 next year is conversations about working with financial advisors. Because as you know, being a liability manager helps you with realtors, it helps you with clients, but man, working with financial advisors is an incredible opportunity. And I still feel like that's a missing opportunity in our industry right now.
Yeah, so I've found a couple things that always are in the top 10. One, there's a really good headline. 2, it's very on point for the market at hand. And then usually it's a pretty well-known name. Now, like this year, we had some, Jim Deitch, like while he's fairly well known in the C-suite, it's not well known by loan officers, but it got a lot of views. Daniel Saw, I think he's pretty well known. He's in the coach core community, but it was the first time he was in our channel. And then, Phil Jones, again, he's got a book that's been read over 3 million times. Oh, yeah. But let's you and I think of the headline. Like if we're actually gonna get one of the top most viewed videos, we need a killer headline, and then we need a killer who, And so let's you and I work on that post this call, and I'd love to see that happen too, especially given my backstory and founding MortgageCoach really came from how to be valuable to financial advisors, so that I was more valuable to both realtors and consumers. So let's come up with something there, bro.
That's awesome. Look forward to it. I actually trained my chat GPT with Phil Jones's magic words. That was one of the training things I did for my personal GPT, and it was really cool. Now it definitely uses a lot of those words in the responses and in the content that I developed there. So
time out. How did you train your chat GPT with all of his magic words? Like walk us. Well, let's not go down too big of a rabbit trail, but just give me a little heads up on how you did that.
So when you go into ChatGPT, you can train it now with all kinds of different guidelines and principles. Like you tell it who you are, your audience, what you're focused on, how you want it to respond. One of the newsletters, I actually show how I trained it. I'm trying to think of I can't remember which newsletter it is, but at the bottom, I always do AI, like a new tool that I'm using and a new strategy. And at the bottom of one of the ones, we may be able to find it here when we talk, I put in a list of his magic words, his top 100 magic words into the training to say, use these when it makes sense. I also asked the ChatGPT to, tell me when I'm missing something. Because that's been one of the most helpful prompts is in the training. What am I missing? What should I be thinking about? I'm not thinking about. What's the alternative? Put that at the bottom, an alternative that I need to consider. I'm always astonished because I use it daily as like a partner when I'm working to ask questions and kind of give me some cognitive diversity I wouldn't otherwise get. So anyway, I'm building GPTs now, which is another conversation we should talk about. That's kind of fun. And one of the ones I want to build is a Phil Jones GPT, just to kind of use it around writing. And I've got a couple that I've found that I really like that I'm using now, so we could have another conversation about that.
I love it. Let's do it. So So guys, I have shared a link to, those top 12 videos and the LinkedIn article in both Zoom and Facebook. If you're watching this in YouTube, there'll be a link down below. Also, the newsletter that, both Todd and I want every mortgage professional to subscribe to this. I believe that if you're going to win going forward in the mortgage space, you can't be a loan officer. You need to be a mortgage advisor, AKA mortgage coach. Means you need to be smarter than loan officers around giving advice beyond the transaction, and you need to show up smarter. So there is a link down below. Todd, did you end up getting a domain for this other than this, borrowsmart.beehive? Is there another just easy to remember link for everyone?
Not yet, but I'm working on it. I've got it. I've got a couple of things I'm working on related to that, but haven't nailed down a domain yet.
Okay, well, stay tuned on that, everybody. In the meantime, we put the link down below. Make sure you put in your email, get signed up, and then boom, like we're talking massive value, lots of visual insight. As I interview the best loan officers in America, they are using MortgageCoach to personalize and localize what the family's goals are and show that to them. And you know what? They have their go-to charts. They've got charts and slides to help consumers make better decisions. And this is an incredible resource, guys. So make sure you sign up and you get direct access to this as Todd updates it. So Todd, where do you want to start today? Like, what do you want to make sure you communicate to everyone? What are some of the most important charts that you think the Mortgage Coach Trust Engine community needs to have?
Well, since we do this once a month and I'm doing this every Friday, we've got 4 that we've released since our last call. So if you want, we can kind of play around, do a little scrolling through some of the charts, some of the concepts, ideas around the Chronicles. And then you always ask great questions and make it stimulating. So we'll see what questions you have as we talk about it. How about that?
That sounds good. And while we don't have a big audience, I mean, this is the last business day of the year. For the small audience we do have, guys, ask some questions. Like, this is, the goal here is have a very open forum. We got the professor here. He's going to walk us through charts, but let's face it, it's always a better learning experience when it's interactive. Also, just want to make sure that the group that we do have live in Zoom, you know how to use these little reactions. Give me a little thumbs up. If you like something Todd says, feel free to give him a heart, give him an applause, and let's go. Why don't you share your screen and start teaching us?
Here, let me share out. Okay. So you seen that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So one of the things I do and I like to try to do with these is there's some consistency here. There's always going to be some quotes. I'm a big fan of mindset and skill set, but you got to work both sides, right? You can learn something that is new from a skill set standpoint, but you got to figure out what's the why. How do I use that? How do I incorporate that into a conversation with somebody, and what's it for? So at the top, there's always going to be a concept or an idea, something about liability management or learning to borrow smart, and then we're going to get into the charts that I think support some of the key things that are happening. So I'm going to go back, a couple of weeks, and at the top of this particular newsletter, we talked about cycles. I love talking about cycles. Some people probably get sick of me talking about cycles, but they help you understand dynamics of a lot of what's going on in the market. And one of the key dynamics is market versus management, right? So if you're a loan producer and the market's down 10%, how do you be only down 5%? Because in that situation, your management, your capability is having a positive impact. If the market's up 10% this year and you're up 20%, again, there's management. But if you're up 10 and the market's up 10 and you're down 10, the market's down 10, you're just really kind of, you could say you're flowing with the market cycle. So a lot of this is about how do you develop skills and abilities to have conversations with people that help them understand like how to make a decision, with what's going on. And one of the key things I wanted to point out here is the cycle of housing market transitions. This is a graphic I put together some time ago based on work that was done by Neil Shearing. And what's interesting is we talked about this. I mean, it was probably a year ago that when you think about these housing market cycles that we're going through all the time, I'll make that a little bit bigger. The first stage of a housing market weakening is sentiment, right? People start talking about housing. It's too expensive. I can't afford it. I don't have a down payment. And that flows into articles and newsletters and these charts that you're seeing. And I put together my own sentiment indicator that we'll look at. But what's happening is it starts people thinking in a particular way. That flows through in buyer traffic. They stop going to open houses. They hear that and they start changing their behavior. So now the wind is it's sort of blowing towards you when you're walking, right? And housing market activity stops. And then house prices start to actually fall in some cases. We've had a really unusual thing where we've seen all of the slowdowns with refinance and some with purchase activity because of different things. And the downward cycle's been happening, but we really haven't seen prices fall. But what's starting to happen now is the cycle is going the other way. We're seeing a strengthening of housing market sentiment. And how can I say that? Well, I look at probably 100 charts, 50 charts to 100 charts a day, right? And one of the things you start to pick up on is what's being featured. What are people talking about? And that sentiment is what people are seeing. They're seeing it in ABC Good Morning America, right? What are you starting to hear now again and again? Throughout this whole holiday, what's been on the news a lot, Dave, when you think about housing and housing-related sentiment?
Well, I mean, I because I'm, so close to First Home IQ, I've just been seeing a lot of content. I watched a podcast from the New York Times yesterday. I watched another one, just, really like, well, there is an affordability crisis, exaggerating it to a point of like, don't buy now. Like a lot of content, from mainstream media is that, it's not a great time to buy a house. And, and pushing a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty around home ownership. And at least that's what I'm seeing in my, microcosm.
Yep. So that's part of this downward cycle, right? Because you hear that, people see that and stuff, but then you're also starting to see this sort of recency bias of rates have come down the fastest that they've come down in history in such a short period of time, right? So we got up to almost 8, which was really important psychological.
Hey, Todd, real quick though,
Yeah.
although I am seeing a lot of content that's like a week to 2 weeks behind, and like rates are above 7 and they're not. They're like, 6.4 today. So it's also really because they have come down so quick. I think it's exploited just how behind mainstream media is. And just a reminder to anyone listening to this, like, because you're an industry expert, because you've got people like Todd, because you have platforms like ours, you have the ability to literally be 2 to 3 weeks ahead of mainstream media. Like that's just it's never been more obvious than this week and last week.
Yeah, I mean, the news, the information is flowing constantly, and it's just information.
And by the way, I'm not talking Housing Wire. Like Housing Wire
yeah.
is bringing in great, fresh, relevant, today content. I'm talking mainstream media, not industry specific, and especially not Housing Wire. Just want to call that out because they do a great job.
Yeah, no, they're coming out. And again, and we as an industry have access to this long before the consumers do. So you've got this mainstream media that's out there talking about stuff that's always lagging, not only weeks and sometimes months. So you have to be, in a way, your own reporter, right? Go out to the consumers that you work with and let them know what's really happening right now in the market, because you can jumpstart this dynamic within your own community, within your own network of customers, to let them know what's happening with rates right now. And we shared a book that we put together called What is Liability Management? And this is another great resource to kind of download if you haven't. It's about 30 pages. You can read it in an hour, but it's talking a lot about this positioning, this broader perspective of helping people understand the impact that liability management has over their lifetime, buying real estate, owning houses. But it's not for the consumer. I mean, it is, most consumers won't read it. I say right now it's really for the loan officers out there and the financial advisors that you might be working with and the realtors that you work with to understand what's happening. But home affordability is improving. One of the things I saw this morning on the news said if you bought a house a month ago, the same house now, that if you bought it today would cost you $280 a month less, right? That's that kind of mainstream sentiment that starts to play into people starting to feel like housing is more affordable. And one of the charts we'll look at here in a minute that I just put in today is some really neat work that this guy's doing to kind of offset some of the stuff with New York. The New York Times has what is one of the better rent versus own calculators that, you know, people use it, realtors use it. I hear people talking about it all the time. MortgageCoach does an incredible job with this, but most consumers don't have access to that. So they go to these online calculators, and Aziz has home-economics.us. You ought to look at that, Dave, if you're not familiar with his work. But he is showing right now that the cost of breaking even on buying a home in today's environment is about 4 years. You know, so again, he shows how the same calculations within the New York Times calculator is more like 9 years, and it's just based on some of the biases and the things that they're using. But he's doing a nice job. And this is the kind of stuff that we're putting out into this newsletter that you can look at and say, wow, this is the kind of thing I might want to share with my clients, potential home buyers, realtors that I'm working with as well. But overall, we know that interest rates have a big impact. This is another little chart we just did on house buying power, just the impact of how much house you can buy based on various interest rates. And obviously, when interest rates go up, housing buying power is going down, right? So you want to be a pro with this stuff. And one of the concepts that I find is a really important one, and this was our a pivot from a prior newsletter last week, is this conventional mortgage rate forecasting. And consumers don't know about this, and you have to be clear about how you're thinking about it. I use it as a planning tool right now, that no one is expecting interest rates to go up in the following year. Now, that doesn't mean that that's not possible, but overall, the majority, right, is saying we should be going down, continuing into the sixes, maybe hitting some high fives next year. But as a concept, we talk about this in our course, rate versus return. When you hear interest rate, Dave, like if you're a consumer, and I know it's tough with you to role play because you have a very different experience set than most consumers, but maybe within the nonprofit and the stuff that you're working, when someone hears interest rate, what's the first thing that they associate with interest rate?
Monthly payment.
Monthly payment, right? So interest rate, when we hear interest rate, it's essentially a friction. It's something I have to pay to borrow money, right? And I know that the higher that rate is, the more money I'm having to pay. I may not understand the cost over time, but I know right now, as a cash flow driven human being, rate is really important. Now, when I say the word return, what do you think about?
Making money. You know, one is a minus and a negative, and one is a plus and an asset.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if someone is out there and they're investing for a return, that's money that they expect to earn. So one key concept, and again, this is more to think about this as a loan officer, it's the same exact thing. It's just a function of perspective, right? If you are a borrower, you care about rate. But if you're a lender, you care about return. And as someone who has money, we lend that to people in the form of an investment. So at the end of the day, if I say today's 7% rate, as a borrower, I'm paying 7%, but the lender is getting what? They're getting the 7% because they're loaning that money out. It's their return. So this can help sometimes because when people hear the word rate, they're really thinking about what they're paying. They may be able to earn a higher return on that money through owning real estate. And so rate is the amount I pay, but return can be what? Offset by appreciation, by all kinds of other things that I'm earning on that property over time, or just the fact that right now, I mean, think about it. If you borrowed money at 3% to buy a house years ago, and you borrowed more money than you needed to, that money that you have today is sitting in a checking account or in a money market fund earning 5 or 6%, right? There's a real return that's a positive for you. So over time, when you're looking at this sort of rent versus own, one of the key things that I like to play around with is just understanding what consumers really are hearing. What are they thinking about when they say, what's your interest rate? What they're really hearing is, how much am I going to have to pay to borrow money from you? And what is that payment going to do to keep me from doing other things that I might want to do with my money, such as investing? But if I'm investing it, what am I investing it for? A return, which is just a rate that I'm being paid as I lend money out. So anyway, just something to kind of play around with. Millennials, their parents got really cheap money compared to what the kids are getting right now. And their houses were cheaper back then too. Now rates are going up and house prices are going up. That's something that we have to deal with. There's a challenge. But this is the kind of stuff you're seeing out there in the media right now as well, right? Record drops in 10 years, record drops in 30-year mortgages. And a lot of consumers are still anchoring in on those higher numbers. But the good news is that anchoring at those higher rates creates a feeling that things are getting really, really good or much better, right? Because if I anchor in at rates being at 7 or 8 and I suddenly find out they're at 6, that feels really good. That feels really cheap psychologically. Whereas what I was anchoring in before was 3 or 4%, right? And when I'm anchored on 3 or 4% and I hear the rates are 6%, that sounds really bad to me as a consumer. And that's part of that sentiment stuff that we're seeing that's going on out there in the market today, with what's happening with house sales and sentiment. And this is showing that home builders are seeing traffic really start to pick up again. It's kind of hit an all-time bottom here. Back in 2020, that was COVID, right? That was the COVID bottom. But we're seeing that bottom out again. And they're starting to expect, highs again in traffic. And that's one of the reasons that builders are smart. They aren't building houses like crazy if they don't believe there's more traffic coming in and more activity coming in the near future.
Hey, Todd,
Yep.
one of the things I love to do, because part of my goal with these weekly calls is, to make them interactive, and to what's your guess on how many different charts you're sharing in a given month? My guess is it's 100-ish.
Yeah, probably. It's probably 15 to 20 a week. Sure.
Okay, so 50 to 20 a week. So there's a lot. And I'm going to ask you a question, and then I want you, it doesn't have to be most recent. I just want you to go to your platform and show me what would be the couple. And by the way, community, everyone listening to this, because we do have some live people. If you have a question, like I'm going to ask him a question, and if you can think of something like a market need you have, after he answers my question, you guys, I would love to have the audience ask a question. And anybody who's watching the video of this, like every month, we're going to have Todd. He's going to come in like, hey, I want to make sure everybody knows about X and Y from the over 100 charts I've shared. But Todd, here's the question. If I was next week, it'll be the first week of the month, and I'm going to be having a lot of realtor meetings. I might even, like in the case of Sean Herrero, he's this second week of the month, he's going to actually do a 100 realtor event. What would be no more than 5, but 1 to 5 of your charts that I'd want to integrate into my realtor conversations, or I'd want to share on stage to a bunch of realtors? What comes to mind if you could, kind of like help us find the needle in the haystack here, and prep us for realtor meetings next week?
Cool. All right. Love it. So I'm going to go through and I'm just going to click on a couple of the newsletters. I think
and guys, you're also learning how to navigate and use Todd's online platform here. Like, hey, I've got, and again, I hope the next question comes from the community. I got one ready. So if the community doesn't ask it, I'll ask a good one for you, but show us what you got.
Yeah, so just on the navigation, once you sign up here, you can come to the website and you can see, each host. So we're on our 8th episode here, meaning our 8th one of these sort of chart
And
opportunities.
each
And
one
I've
is
got
like 20 to 50 charts. I hope I'm like
exactly,
do that.
exactly. Yeah. And then you've got all the blog posts down here, which are really more articles on different concepts and ideas, and they're searchable. And at the top, you've got, topics. Maybe you're interested in more wealth related stuff, or you just want to focus on, real estate related things. If you click real estate, it's going to at least show you things that have more of a real estate, oriented kind of a focus. But I think, if you're working with realtors and first-time home buyers right now, this topic of breaking even and the fact that
Well, by
housing.
the way, how'd you get to that show? Oh, you just clicked on real estate and you got to this?
No, actually, I just went back because I had the last 4 newsletters kind of in
Oh,
fast
okay.
that was
Okay,
easy to
got
get
it.
to. But it's
Yeah.
these last 4 newsletters, right here that I've got up right now.
Okay.
So I think break even is really important for people to understand. And you can do this in a TCA, right? You can go through and based on assumptions for appreciation rates. I mean, everything is looking still in the 4s, 4+s. We'll find that chart on expectations for appreciation. That can help you with doing a scenario in TCA for what is your break even on buying right now a new property? Is it 3 years for you? Is it 5 years for you? Here's a great example where it's running around 4 years. And
Well, I wanna real quick, guys. So you could, take a screenshot of that. You can also drag your mouse over it and copy it, put it into a slide, and then I would have, yeah, there's copy image right there. I would also have a rent versus own and use the words like this is macro national content and what's happening nationally. And then, there's what's happening locally. And, like I live in Newport Beach. There's what's happening in Newport Beach. There's what's happening in Costa Mesa. There's what's happening in Huntington Beach. Like, there's all these different areas. So localize it and then personalize it based off of that consumer's personal goals and what their assumptions are. Like, I'll bet you here in Newport Beach, there are people that think there's going to be 5% appreciation next year. And I'll bet you there's some people here that think there's going to be 5% deflate, like values are going to go down. So you want to localize it. You want to personalize it. You use that in a rep versus own. And then if you are doing a one-on-one meeting with a realtor, this is a great example to like show some national news, ask them their opinion. And then here's the other deal. Like they think they know, but based on their assumptions of what homes are going to appreciate, based on their local market, when you show them a rent versus own or a move up analysis, you're bringing clarity, you're bringing confidence. And by the way, every loan officer in your market can't do that. So just if you're having a one-on-one conversation, don't just present this to them, like show it to them, ask questions, and then show them, what this will look like in a total cost analysis based off their personal goals, their personal beliefs. All right, Todd, next. Unless you want to add something to that.
no, just paint. If you're going to realtors, if your target is the realtor, you want to put the realtor into the story as the hero of that story. That's the story branding methodology. It's really powerful. If you're going to a realtor to get to the consumer, put the consumer into the story. When you put your presentation together, how do you make that person into a hero by being able to justify or help them afford, or in many cases, psychologically feel like they can afford to buy a house right now and that it might make sense for them to do that, knowing that rates are going to change, values are going to change. But historically, and this is another, it's right underneath it, this is kind of the normalization of interest rates. We have been through a historical period of extremely low interest rates, right? And if people continue to believe that they're going to buy a house when rates get to 3% again, right, that's going to create a real sentiment challenge. So being able to explain to a realtor that rates are not high, they are actually just now back to their historical average since 1871. Our historical kind of normalized rate for mortgages has been in that 7 to 7.5%. We will go above it and we will go below it in time, but this is normal. So when people get into this high interest rate thing, on a relative basis, this chart right below it shows the steep slide, right, that we've had in interest rates after a steep period up. And the problem with these down projections, they're now projecting 7 rate cuts. I don't believe there's going to be 7 rate cuts next year. I just don't. I believe the economy is too strong for that. But that can create a deflationary environment where people are concerned they're going to wait to buy. And what we know is if they can buy a house now and rates go down, the values are going to go up in their properties. So that's another point you can make with realtors is as rates go down, values go up because it's cheaper to buy real estate. So, you're better off buying when rates are higher if you think rates are going to go down because you can refinance to a lower rate. But you get to lock in those prices before they go up again. And we are at a precipice right now where we could see with inventory.
Time out.
Yeah.
Before you go off that one,
Yep.
I'll go back to that
Sorry.
chart. So I saw an Instagram yesterday by Socia Vela, and Soci was showing making it clear that, hey, you can buy now and you can refi later. And so this is a great, like another total cost analysis you'd want to have right now. When you're showing this image is where like, hey, column A is, buy now. Column B is, what if you wait? And we know that as rates go down, values will go up. But remember, ask their assumptions. Don't just tell them what you think is going to happen. Go, what do you think is going to happen? And then he has in column 3 a refinance. Like, hey, lock in your purchase price now. Refinance when rates go down, whatever whatever the consumer thinks, or use MBA averages. And now you're showing like you're really making a great case using macro content from Todd, using the total cost analysis to personalize it and localize it. And now you can one, give clarity to the consumer, which creates confidence, which is a competitive advantage in the market ahead. So just another great TCA right there. And if you go in the MortgageCoach or the Trust Engine 10X, if you go to trustengine.com/10X, I did a training. Well, I've done multiple trainings on this. So make sure you check that out. Is a supplemental training aid.
Yeah, leverage is so powerful, and especially, you got people putting smaller down payments down, which is historically going to be, again, the norm for the millennials and the starters. They have very little invested to control a large asset that can go up quite a bit in value. These are interesting. Again, I'm not sure that these would be ones that I would pick in my top 5. Just showing what the housing starts are going up because there's a lot of optimism.
And remember, we're trying to find the needle in the haystack. So let's just do, I think you've shown 2 really solid needles. Let's just do one more. Because what I also don't want to do is, hey man, this is a fire hose. You've got, 100 charts per month coming in. I do recommend all mortgage advisors, you scan this and you're looking for gold. Like, hey, what is going to bring clarity and confidence to my realtors, to the consumers I'm serving in the market I'm in? But one more, just show one more, and then I have another question, unless one of our audience has a question. And come on, Fran, John, Craig, Victoria. And then, of course, I got a lot of people. I don't know exactly who's watching us on Facebook right now, but I know there's some people out there. Just, give us a question. But if I don't get one from you, I'm ready for the next one. Okay, Todd, what do we got here?
This is what on this current kind of point of waiting, like the waiting to buy a house, U.S. home price growth over the last 50 years. It's a really nice chart that shows the nominal price growth of housing over time, nominal and real. We won't get into that, but the median home price just from 2019 to 2022 went from 322 to 458. So you could use something like that in a TCA to then have this in a way, because again, people trust what you say, and then when you can show them what you just said. So use that as the example, put these numbers in, show what would it cost you 3 years if you were saving to buy over 3 years, right? How much would you have had to have saved to buy that house versus it went up $130,000, right, in value? There's no way you're going to save $130,000 over that 3 years, but you would have made that That's that rate return thing we were talking about before. There's the rate you pay on the house, but there's also the return on owning a house versus renting over time. So when you can find, and this is where, to Dave's point, as you have an idea or a story you're trying to tell, you can scroll through these charts. They're divided into 3 categories. You'll notice at the top, the first category is always liabilities, AKA mortgages. So these are mortgage related charts. The second category is real estate, and these are real estate related charts. And the third category is investment and assets. And these are going to be like wealth and financial advisory sort of things that you might want to look at. So if you're really interested in just, say, having real estate conversations, you could go to each one of these newsletters, and you could go right to the real estate section, and you're going to have all the charts that I think. And again, there are a lot more charts that I'm posting out there on the internet than these. These are just some of my favorite ones. So you're going to get a distillation of some of my favorite charts, and you're going to get them in each particular area, such as, in this case, real estate. Here's another one that I would point out, Dave. This is rent. National rent has been coming down, but in the last couple of weeks, we've started to see that turning up again. And when rents start to go up, that also is a positive for housing, right? Because if I'm a tenant and my rent's renewing and my rent's going from 1,500 to 2,000, I start thinking, what's the exchange cost on that for me to buy something new, right? If rent's going down from 1,500 to 1,000, I have less pressure to think about buying my own house, right? So anytime you see rents going up, that's going to be a positive. And I've got another chart in here. Let me see. I think it may be the one that just came out. Was it this one? Probably have so many charts because you have to go out and find them. I don't even think I posted on my Facebook, but I haven't even posted it into the newsletter because it just came out. But it's showing that housing prices are a leading indicator, about 14-month leading indicator of rent. So as those turn up again, rent's also turning up again, and that'll start putting some positive pressure on housing.
Cool. All right. So stop sharing your screen real quick.
All right.
All right, guys, one more chance. Anybody have a question? Just to make sure you guys are still tuning in, give us a reaction. What do you think of the call so far? So any reactions to the value you're getting? So cool. We just saw a couple hearts. Thank you for that, guys. All right, here's another question, and maybe the audience will get us a closing question. But I am going on Tuesday to meet with a first-time home buyer who could buy and do some house hacking. Like I want to be able to have a house hacking conversation. So I'm actually meeting a first-time home buyer. And then because rates are going down, it's kind of like part 2 to the question. I'm doing a lot of annual reviews right now. And I want to have some slides so that when I'm talking to families that have either high school or college age kids, I'm introducing the house hacking conversation. Like I want to be able to say, hey, you know what? You could help your kids achieve homeownership, and you should. And so that, they're going to use the MortgageCoach rent versus own. So that's going to be one of their go-tos into this conversation to personalize it, localize it. But what are 2, no more than 5 slides that maybe it's one of the slides you already showed us, but like, I just want you to literally net it out. Like, I don't want more than 5. I want 3-ish to no more than 5 slides that we could pull from your platform. What comes to mind?
So let me make sure I understand. So when you say house hacking in this example, are you talking to people that you're talking to the kids about buying their first home and the parents?
Well, one of them, I did give you kind of a double whammy because I thought it would be similar slides. One, I'm actually talking to could have been a 25-year-old, could be a 31-year-old, whatever, but someone first-time home buyer. And house hacking, by definition is, hey, they're buying like a 3-bedroom house and they're going to rent out a couple bedrooms. They're going to generate income from their personal residence to help support the financial decision to buy that house. And then I think it's going to be similar slides I want to have some slides when I'm doing my annual reviews with people where they have college age kids or high school age kids, where I can kind of lean into it. Hey, have you thought of helping your kids buy a home sooner?
Mhm. Yeah, I'm trying to think of, because with 100 charts, I don't know where they all are. I would probably need a little time to kind of think, because that's a lot more strategic. I would certainly focus on charts to talk about house-related wealth, and the compounding effect of that wealth, because, again, the dynamics of wealth compounding is also a function of return, and real estate provides leverage. So, again, I just don't know where all these different slides would be instantaneously, but I know that we've got slides on leverage and the power of leverage as it relates to, if you had $10,000 and you put it into an investment, it's going to grow at a $10,000, whatever that return is. If I take a $10,000 and I buy a $100,000 house with it, I'm getting 10x the return, right? So that's, again, part of the reason that real estate creates wealth.
Let's do this just because I can tell, like,
Yeah.
for the next time we have you. So I don't know if it'll be 3 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now. Let's come with a couple slides. Also, it might be fun to collaborate with Sean Herrero, because he's creating a lot of content like this, where he's making a case for you can buy, you can buy a $500,000 house with 3% down. That's $15,000. And if you need to get a side gig, you could drive an Uber for a year, save that $15,000, and achieve homeownership. So let's plan on you coming to the next one with some very intentional slides that would help loan officers have that conversation. That is something that I'm talking a lot to our community right now, is like, we can't just wait for the phone to ring, and say, oh, I want to help my kid, house hack. Oh, I want to help my kid buy a duplex or triplex. We can't wait for the phone to ring. We need to make that part of our annual reviews. And right now I'm seeing a lot of loan officers doing reviews.
Yep.
Trying to think, who did I interview? Sean. I interviewed Sean on this Tuesday. He had done 40 reviews, mortgage reviews, the week before, and he was going to do 40 more this week. And actually, I want to get some slides to help him with that.
Yep. No, I love it. If you have a prompt, it helps, because you can tell 5 stories with the same chart. You know what I mean? Like, if you understand kind of the dynamics of a chart, you can take that chart as a foundation for a particular story. And if you've got a framework like helping a young couple buy their first home, or helping someone house hack or whatever, then you can put these charts together and tell really interesting stories with them that help people. Again, you're not trying to convince them to do something they shouldn't do. It's just helping them accomplish what they want to accomplish and feel good about it. And I think there's a bunch of different ways we can do that. So if we take a couple, maybe, again, you and I we're climbing a tree in the dark with this, to try to talk about how do we take this sort of information and make it applicable. It could be we try to create a couple of consistent prompts that we look at each week, and then we look at how is the information that's being presented useful to a loan officer in telling a particular story or communicating something with a real estate partner. I'm a huge fan of financial advisors, so that's a lot of where we focus our attention, is how do you use this information to engage financial advisors as well in referring clients to you. And that can be around buying a house or refinancing, consolidating debt, whatever the case may be. But that would be a helpful way to create a lens that we start to use when we look at this content.
Cool. Well, we've got about, we can end early, but we've got 12 minutes. So with 12 minutes left, let people know, anyone that wants to go through your Certified Liability Advisor, let them know how to do that. And then any closing thoughts that you have after you make sure people know how to get certified.
Yeah, so I'll just throw in, it's barsmartuniversity.com. That's where you can go to learn about the CLA. We have the Certified Liability Advisor designation. That's based on learning to be a liability advisor, kind of upping your game, going from mortgage lender to looking at the liability side of the balance sheet. And then we have our FAST course, which is basically taking the liability advisor mindset and working with financial advisors. How do you build a network of 20 financial advisors referring you one client a month? I mean, that is the foundation of the FAST program. How do I get to that? What do I need to do? People are comfortable working with realtors, but they don't know how to call in advisors, even though they're a huge opportunity. So especially with reverses and retirement and all that. So there's a lot there you can learn, and there's a lot of this kind of stuff. But again, you can sign up for the newsletter and get bits and pieces of what we're talking about in the coaching and the other programs. We've got a two for kind of a BOGO right now. If you want to get your CLA, you get the entire FAST course with it, or you can get a substantial discount if you want to just try one or the other. So if you're interested, just reach out to me and let me know. But we're not making it public, but we've got people that have been really interested for a while. So I'll put my email in here as well. And you can just email me and say, hey, I'm interested, and I can share with you our BOGO offer. You can get the course and the whole FAST program, which is a great way to go into 2024, thinking about how do I develop a totally new network of referral partners. And again, it's just, there's so many opportunities out there. The financial advisors meeting with their client every single quarter in most cases. When we talk about annual reviews, Dave, when you and I first started talking about that 10, 15 years ago, it was very unheard of, right? For a loan officer to sit down and do 40 annual reviews. But those 40 annual reviews that Sean's doing, they're going to create opportunities to have really cool conversations about the future. Advisors are already doing that. So when you tell them that you do annual reviews with clients and that you'll support them in their annual review process to look at the liability side of the balance sheet, you're creating a stream of opportunities, which is really powerful. At a minimum, learn this stuff for yourself. It really will make your life. You're going to pay the price either way. You're going to spend the time one way or the other, right? You learn it, and as I said today in our post that just went out today at noon, the old quote, hard choices, easy life.
Right.
It's hard life, right? There's two types of simple. There's simple and there's simple. And if you read the newsletter today, you'll know more about what I mean by that. Do you want to be on the simple side of the curve where you just wish things were easier? Or do you want to be on the side where you've taken the time to learn this stuff in a way that life is easier because you're creating a mastery around what you do? And that's, the mortgage industry. I was talking to a loan officer yesterday about this, is continuing to be pushed towards the push button, get mortgage mindset. And then the consumers are being taught that is the way, because there's a tremendous marketing, engine out there that is forcing them to believing that is the way. And, we're saying, no, there's a lot to this, and you want to become, someone that can help consumers at a totally different level. You can show them life-changing financial impact when they're buying, selling, and refinancing a house. And that, it takes some study. You don't learn that filling out a 1003, but it's out there. The information's out there, knowledge is out there. So big fan.
Yeah, and again, it's just important to recognize there's two parts of the mortgage process. There's the transaction, and hey, the more automation, the more push button, automated underwriting, AI enabled capabilities, hey, the better. That's the transaction side. But there's the advice sides, like how much should you put down? What type of mortgage? Do you pay points? Do you not pay points? Do you do MI? How do you prepay your mortgage, or do you invest that money in an offset account? So there's, I think it's super important. And I just want to remind people every chance, if you want to optimize your success as a mortgage professional, yes, you need to know how to be a great transactional professional, but where the real gold is, where the client for life is, where you become more valuable to realtors than they are to you, is when you can actually deliver advice and help consumers achieve the true American dream, which is homeownership with financial freedom. And that just doesn't happen by accident. It happens through education and being, a master educator. So Todd, we got 5 minutes. Any closing thoughts? Any last slides that you want to make sure people see? And we can always wrap it up a little early, and get on with our last couple days before the new year.
Well, yeah, I mean, heck, I will always take an opportunity to share something if we've got a moment. I was going to go back to a process that we developed many years ago. It's in the book that I wrote, the 7 steps. And the 7 steps are really, really powerful. And I encourage people, if you don't have is it okay to share screen again?
Yeah, go for it.
So, in this particular newsletter, we provide an outline of these 7 steps. And having a duplicatable, scalable, repeatable process is really, really important when you're engaging consumers, especially when you first start to kind of learn about this liability management. And if you'll just learn the first 4 questions that are the first 4 part of this steps, you'll be surprised at the confidence that it will give you when you sit down with a client. Because Dave did that very naturally, right? He's not currently producing loan officer, but still you could tell he went right to product and payment and things like that. So the 7 steps, the way we put this together for ourselves was a way to kind of lift the game of all of the loan officers that we had at our company at that time. And we used to ask clients, we'd say, look, I'm glad you called, whatever their entry point is for calling from a realtor, financial advisor, whatever. And we would simply say, look, there's 7 questions that you need to be able to answer. And we're talking about the advice side right now, right? I think it was Garth showed me one time a report that they had done at Stratmore, and it was like 87% of all the money that had been invested in the mortgage industry in the last 20 years went to process efficiency, right? Back office technology and making processes and all these things faster. And about 13% went to the front office side, sales, advice, that side of the industry. And that's where I think there's a tremendous opportunity to differentiate yourself. But if Dave, if you were calling me and I told you, look, there's 7 things that you need to be able to answer, and I'm gonna make sure that you know at least 4 of them right now. All right. The first one is, how are you going to manage risk? And that's getting the right mortgage product. How do you repay the loan? That's the payment strategy. How much is available to you right now based on your current situation that you're in? That's credit and income and things like that. And how much do you actually borrow today? Those are the 4 questions I want to be able to answer for you on our call today. And then we can talk about the other ones later. So you're setting a table for people. You want to have a scalable, repeatable process like that you do every time, because if you do that, you become really, really confident, right, in what you're doing. And you can download that PDF here, just play around with it in the book. There's a chapter on each of these where we talk about why these are so important. But how do you manage risk? People care about risk. When they say, I want the lowest interest rate, they're actually focused on the payment, as we discussed earlier. But you're going to change this to say, look, payment's incredibly important and interest rate's a big part of that. But do you know that how you repay the loan will have a bigger impact on your interest rate than anything else that you do? So we're going to talk about what? Your interest rate in the context of the cost of your borrowing over 30 years, which is all about your repayment strategy. So if you've got a better system, go for it. But if you don't, learn 3 or 4 questions that you go to every single time as a process for that consumer, and your conversion rate will go up dramatically. Just because people would, when you put them into a process and they're clear that you have a process.
Hey, Todd, also on your screen, I'm just seeing all your desktop, which
Man, did I hit the wrong? My bad, I hit the wrong button.
Pretty intense. There you go. Sorry for not catching that a few minutes earlier.
Sorry, man. I hit the wrong. I got like 4 screens.
Well, I should have called it out right away, but I was so curious, like, hey, what's Todd got on his screen here? And all of a sudden I realized, oh man,
Yeah. You probably got some picture of some part of my wife or on the boat or tons of icons,
yeah, I don't know. I took a screenshot. I'm gonna share it on social media with some funny comments.
Ransom. I love it. But anyway, this is what I was trying to show. It was in the last newsletter that we put out there, a sample. You could download this. It's in the book, and you can get that for free if you want it. Let me know. But we talk about each of these. But I'm just saying, if I could say one thing to address what we talked about earlier, I go through this again and again. Have a duplicatable, scalable, repeatable process. that you start with every client conversation the same way. I'm so glad you called me. Let's talk about what you're trying to accomplish, but know that there's 7 things that we're going to have to address, and we're going to get through at least 4 of those today. You set the table, you have a framework, and then you have something that you can build on with the client. And if you don't have a process like that, R&D hours, it's right here. It's pretty simple.
Well, Todd, go ahead and stop sharing your screen. Bro, you're a gift to me personally. I learn a lot just
Same here,
following
man.
you on Facebook and being in your group. Remind everybody about your Facebook group.
Yeah, that's just that is facebook.com/knife CLA. And that's where I post all of the charts. So that's my stream throughout the day. When I see something I really like, I'm going to throw it up there. And then what I'm doing with the newsletters, I'm curating some of my favorite ones from that stream. So, throughout the week, as I'm reading on Twitter or other people, LinkedIn, I see stuff.
What's Twitter? I've never heard of that. Is that I thought that Twitter is gone.
It's now X. I can't stop.
I know. I'm just having fun.
Drives me nuts, but I guess if Elon can spend $44 billion or $420 billion, whatever he spent on that damn thing, 42 billion. I guess he can name it whatever he wants, but
exactly.
Still one of the best places for really thoughtful conversations out there on the internet.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of very smart people are posting very smart things. I just wait for you to share it. So I've got friends like you to sift through all that for me, and I appreciate it. Thank you for being my news aggregator.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah. So anyways, dude, really appreciate you, brother. Everyone who tuned in live, thank you for being active in this community. This is the last piece of content for 2023. We'll see you back next Tuesday. Actually, let's see, who am I interviewing on Tuesday? I think I've got someone 9 o'clock. Gosh, I am not sure who I'm interviewing on Tuesday, but I know I got Jeremy. Anyways, it's gonna be awesome. We'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.
Take care, everybody. See ya.